Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
John. So, thank you all for coming. For the next hour or so, hour and a half, we'll have a little bit of Prabhupada Katha. I started talking on the topic of chanting when we were in Soho Street. So I thought that we could continue with that. This, of course, is from the seminar series that I have, Srila Prabhupada, the Living Bhagavatam. What I'm going to do tonight, though, is I'm not going to follow directly on from where we left off this morning in Soho Street. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. This particular seminar is quite long. It usually takes about 10 sessions of about an hour or an hour and a half each. And I never usually get to the end of it because I do 3 or 4 sessions and then I stop. So I thought it would be nice. I'm just going to jump ahead and go onto the section leading from bhajans and onwards. This seminar is mainly in 2 parts. It's about chanting, and of course there's individual and collective chanting. And the individual chanting, japa, I've covered most of that in the last couple of sessions I did. And then the second half of it is about various aspects of kirtan. So I'm just going to jump in on one section there on bhajans and see where that leads us. As Prabhupada said, Krishna consciousness is all nectar, or it's like sugar. Wherever you taste it, at the beginning, the middle, or the end, it's always sweet. So, you don't need to hear the beginning of the seminar in order to appreciate it. And if anybody has any comments or questions as we're going along, feel free to interrupt. Put your hand up and we can discuss more. Yeah? Okay, so this is the bhajan section then. A little bit about the harmonium, since that's one of the main instruments, because it's a favourite instrument in ISKCON, because Prabhupada used to play the harmonium. And there was a harmonium there right at the very beginning in 26 Second Avenue. I just recently, for the first time, heard Allen Ginsberg's harmonium chanting. Somebody put something on the internet, there was a little clip there, it's very interesting. He has a very particular style of chanting Hare Krishna. And he plays his harmonium, not very adeptly, but somehow or another he's squeezing out a tune there, so it's worth it if you look it up on the internet, just to hear that. But there was harmoniums there right at the very beginning, and of course on the early films you can see they're just pumping it. Nobody's playing the keyboard. It's like a drone instrument. And then afterwards Prabhupada advised them you should learn how to play it nicely. And of course Prabhupada was a very expert harmonium player. But the harmonium itself is not actually a Vedic instrument. It's an instrument from France. It was invented in the 1830s in Paris. And somehow or another, it's become very popular all over India. It's one of the favourite instruments in kirtans or in bhajans there. So right at the very beginning then of ISKCON, Prabhupada was kind of in favour of the harmonium being played during aratis. There's a letter from him to Aniruddha. This is on the 14th of November 1968. And he says, Arati is performed 1.5 hours before sunrise to awaken the deities. Each offering is made by moving it in 7 big circles, starting at the lotus feet of the Lord and going clockwise around. First of all, burning camphor or ghee, 5 fires if possible, is offered in this way, slowly circling them before the Lord. With the left hand, the bell is being rung, and with the right hand, the offering is made by circling. Next, burning doop is offered. Then, water is offered in a conch shell. Then a nice handkerchief is offered. Then a nice flower, as a rose. Then the deities are offered a fan, nice peacock feather fan. And then the last item is the blowing of the conch shell 3 times. Throughout the arati, there is bell ringing, cymbals, mridanga, gong, harmonium, etc. So that was a description. Of course, that's at the end of 68. Prabhupada was just beginning to introduce proper deity worship into ISKCON. Before that, of course, there was Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra in San Francisco, right at the very beginning. Shyamasundar was engaged in making those deities. But there was no real serious deity worship going on until the end of 68. Then Prabhupada started to introduce it in Los Angeles with Shilavati. She was the first one to get really trained up into doing a proper arati. And then other devotees were advised to go to LA and learn from her how to do it properly. So you'll see this descriptions at the end of 1968. Of course, Radhalanda and Ishwara were the first big deities to be installed, and then Prabhupada trained Jabuna up how to worship them here in London. So anyway, the point there is that we're talking about instruments, and the harmonium was mentioned there in that list. However, as things developed, Prabhupada started to fine-tune things a bit. And on January the 11th, 1976, Prabhupada was in Bombay. And in response to Bahudak's question regarding the use of the harmonium, Prabhupada asserted, the harmonium may be played during bhajan if there is someone who can play it melodiously, but it is not for kirtan and arati. So that was the first time I heard that. And then later on the same year, in December, again I heard Prabhupada say the same thing. We were in Bombay, and I think Kadikaya Mahadevia, he was one of our early life members, rather enthusiastic gentleman. So he introduced this older couple, retired couple, to Srila Prabhupada. They couldn't speak English, but I think they knew Hindi and Gujarati. So they wanted to do something for ISKCON. So they were discussing in Prabhupada's room, and Kadikaya was saying at 6 o'clock in the morning, and in the evening the same thing, no change. In the morning I was also there. So now I brought this gentleman and this lady, and they want to come and stay here and work for the institution. He is 74 years old, and she is also very active, and she knows very good cooking. Prabhupada said, yes, very good. And then Kadikaya goes on, they cannot speak English. That's the whole difficulty. They only speak Hindi and Gujarati. So they are feeling very shy. And he's a very great expert in growing this wheatgrass, which has become very popular. Kadikaya was well known, he was a fanatic about growing wheatgrass. He was pushing it for years and trying to get ISKCON into growing wheatgrass. Nobody really took it up, but he was into it, because he's dead now. But everybody likes very much. Your devotees are also liking. He is an expert in this, and he's a very good music teacher. He has a very good tape recordist. So, puppeteer also, he's making puppets for the last 20 years. So he's expert in making puppets. So we can make Krishna Katha puppets also for our theatre. And he can train our young boys for the same thing. So videotape and everything, he knows all about this audio-visual communication. So Prabhupada says, yes, everybody has got some talent. So, Swakamana Tavabhyarcha, that is wanted. That whatever talent that you have got, you can utilize for Krishna. So Kadikaya says, and I want to utilize for Krishna consciousness. I've known him for the last 22 years. So Prabhupada says, in Krishna consciousness, all varieties of work can be utilized. So he has got perfection. Vyasaki, Sukadev Goswami, simply by narration. So narration is also kirtan, recitation of the Bhagavatam. And by reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, he became perfect, Sukadev Goswami. Pariksit Maharaj, he was simply listening. So these are Navada Bhakti, or 9 kinds of Bhakti processes, and any one of them you'll become perfect if you were expert. So, where are their family? So then Kirtan, you can hear it now, and you want me to be closer?
No, take it away.
I'll take it away a little bit. All right, good. So Kadakara explains he's got 1 son and 1 daughter. His family is in Bombay, and 1 son has expired earlier. So he's got a good talent at teaching Hindi, music and tape recording. And she knows cooking, very good cooking. So Prabhupada says yes, if she gives cooking direction. And then Kadakaya says, so he plays very good harmonium and all musical instruments. And Prabhupada says, no, we don't want to introduce the harmonium. So Kadakaya says, no, I know. That's why, but that's what he's teaching at the moment. So he's doing it out of force. So Prabhupada says the other musical instruments, if he pays his attention, if he plays, his attention will be diverted to the musical instrument and not to the chanting. Oh, we have to see to the melody, whether it is going nicely. But that is not good. Our concentration should be hearing Hare Krishna. That is the bhakti. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, simply karatal and kol. That's all. In those days, of course, there was no harmonium, but there were many stringed instruments there. Sitar, esraj, but these things were not used. Sometimes we do use to attract, but it is not required. So Prabhupada was not keen on this man teaching the harmonium. Because everybody gets concerned about the melody and they get excited about the melodies. But the real concentration should be actually on the holy name. So keep the music simple and focus on the holy chanting of the holy name. So that was twice. There is another place also where Prabhupada said that he didn't want the harmonium to be played in aritis.
This
Yes,
is 74, 5?
This is from 76.
76.
There was another reference, which I don't have here, but that was from I think 74 or something like that. Just recently, at the last GBC meetings, there was a proposal that was passed that was put in by the Kirtan Standards Committee, specifically to outline the use of instruments and the proper standards that Prabhupada wanted for that. So there's a few quotes in there that you can reference. As I've travelled around, nobody even knows that that proposal was passed. But if you read it, it does give an outline about, what instruments to use and when. So the harmonium, Prabhupada was not in favour for aritis and kirtan. We did have a problem defining exactly what is bhajan, because there's no specific description given by Srila Prabhupada, but loosely speaking it tends to be that Prabhupada took bhajan to be when you're sitting down, and arati or kirtan was when you were standing up. So we've used that kind of loose definition. It can be, discussed, but that seems to be the way that Prabhupada applied the idea of bhajan. So anyway, Prabhupada himself was an expert harmonium player, and once or twice we had the good fortune to be with him when he was playing the harmonium. August the 10th, 1976, we were in Tehran, and during his massage today, Prabhupada listened to one of his own song tapes. The melodious strains of the harmonium caused him to smile. He recalled that as a young man, his friend's sister had wanted to marry him because of his expertise at playing the harmonium. So somebody was playing, one of Prabhupada's bhajan tapes, and he heard it, made him think about that. So the first time I heard Prabhupada playing harmonium live was in 1972 when Prabhupada came to Sydney, and a few of us had been chosen to go out on that day's morning walk. So we drove in the van over to Paddington where Prabhupada was staying, and whilst we were waiting for him to come down, because in those days we only had one vehicle, so Prabhupada had to travel in the same van that the devotees were travelling in to go on the morning walk. And as we were waiting on the roadside there, we could hear the harmonium playing upstairs. And Prabhupada was just, you know, keeping in practice there and singing a couple of bhajans whilst he was waiting for the van to take him on the walk. Another time when I heard Prabhupada playing the harmonium, this was in Hawaii, May the 12th, 1976. So we've been there, you know, about 2 weeks. Prabhupada spent the whole month of May. He went there specifically so that he could increase his writing, which he did do he increased up to about 6 times his normal amount because there were no visitors and he had a lot of free time. So on May the 12th, with no visitors, the evenings are quiet and Prabhupada has been reading or chanting. But tonight he suddenly decided to play the harmonium. Not wanting to miss such an opportunity, Pusta Krishna and I came in and sat behind him just to listen. Prabhupada looked over his shoulder at us, and I thought that he might mind the intrusion. But he said, "So, bring the coal and kartals." So we hurriedly brought in the instruments, and feeling very privileged, we accompanied him as he sang the Das Avatar prayers, and we were also able to record it.
Where was that? Sorry. Where did you say it was?
In Hawaii.
Oh,
Honolulu.
Oh.
Yeah. May the 12th. I haven't, since we recorded that, I've never heard that recording since, so maybe I have to dig that one out of the archives. Anyway, it was just very nice. Prabhupada was just, you know, relaxing, and in his free time he decided to sing this bhajan, and because we were there he invited us to join in with the instrumentation. Another time when Prabhupada played the harmonium with us, this was on April the 6th, 1976, leading up to Prabhupada's visit to Los Angeles the same year. So Prabhupada had got a letter in April from Krishna Kanti, who was in charge of Golden Avatar Productions, and he was informing Prabhupada that he'd just set up a professional recording studio in Los Angeles. So he said his aim is to produce first-class Krishna conscious recordings. He enclosed a stereo cassette with the first record album to be recorded entirely within the studio and its first 10 days of operation. He also offered to record Srila Prabhupada when he visits Los Angeles in the summer. He especially wants to make a recording of Prabhupada chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, since he said the only other record of him doing so is still owned by Alan Coleman. Alan Coleman was the producer and the owner of the, I guess, the Happening Studios, or wherever it was that they made the first recording. So he had the copyright on that recording, and interestingly enough, 2 weeks before Prabhupada got this letter, which Krishna Kanti mentioning that Alan Coleman still had the rights to that recording, Alan Coleman had turned up in New Delhi, and he gave Srila Prabhupada $17,000, which was the royalties that had accrued since 1966, and he had never paid Prabhupada any royalties. So in '76 he just suddenly turned up and gave him $17,000. So it was nice. And later on he gave some other donations as well. Anyway, so Prabhupada listened with great satisfaction to the tape called the Hare Krishna Festival, which has a new marching band version of the Maha Mantra. You remember, with the trumpets and the trombones and all the rest. Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada wrote back encouraging Krishna Kanti in his work. "I very much like the chanting on this tape," he said. "It is very excellent, and it should be popularized, and it will be a great success. Introduce this into every home, and that will help them. And if then they read our books, then they are finished. No more material life. Yes, when I come, I also can make a tape of chanting Hare Krishna. But the chanting of Hare Krishna by the other boys on this tape is very nice. Thank you. So Prabhupada liked that very much. Later on, when we had, around the same time when we were having our Rath Yatras in Sydney, Prabhupada advised us to get a marching band to accompany the Rath carts. We actually hired some kind of a Scottish bagpipe band, and we got the sheet music for the Hare Krishna march. And we had the band playing the Hare Krishna tune with the brass band in front of the Rath carts. It was very nice. Anyway, so then the following month, 2 months later, on June the 6th, Prabhupada was in Los Angeles, and he was invited to go to the Golden Avatar Studios for this recording. So at 10 a.m., Prabhupada went to Golden Avatar Productions, just a few blocks from the temple. Krishna Kanti has a recording studio and $30,000 worth of equipment. They are paying for it by leasing out the studio to karmis a few times a week at the rate of $20 an hour. So after inspecting the control room, Prabhupada sat down behind a microphone to sing. I had suggested to Krishna Kanti that he should ask Srila Prabhupada to sing his own poem, Makine Bhagavat Dharma. But Krishna Kanti wasn't interested. I was really annoyed because he invited Prabhupada to come and record, and he was so obsessed with having a recording of Prabhupada chanting Hare Krishna that we owned that he didn't want to do anything else. And when we had arrived in LA, Jai Sachinandana, he had come up one day into Prabhupada's room, and he had put Prabhupada's poem, Makine Bhagavat Dharma, to music. And he played it on the harmonium. He asked Prabhupada if he wanted to do it, and he said, no, you do it. And so Prabhupada sat and listened to Jai Sachinandana, and he had a very nice, sweet voice, and he sang Prabhupada's poem, and it was really, really good. So I was thinking, now Prabhupada's here, this is a unique opportunity. He's going to the recording studio, ask him to to sing his own poem, and we'll have it on tape. Krishna Kanti wasn't interested. He just wanted the Hare Krishna mantra, so that was it. So he requested Prabhupada to sing the Maha Mantra because there's no recording of His Divine Grace which ISKCON actually owns. I mean, there were heaps of recordings, but not a professional one. So Prabhupada happily obliged, and he chanted Hare Krishna while playing the harmonium. After that, he sang one of his favorite bhajans, Gaurangara Dutipada. Wearing his black-rimmed spectacles, his face reflecting a deep intensity of devotion, he pumped the harmonium with his left hand and dexterously depressed the keyboard with his right. Producing a wonderful melody of notes in accompaniment, his sonorous voice resonated the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we did one session, Prabhupada did one session, and then they were, it was an 8-track, so then they wanted to record the instruments separately, and they couldn't find anybody that could play the drum properly. I mean, nobody was very expert. So Prabhupada agreed to return so that he could record the musical accompaniment to what he had just sung. So on June the 8th then, Prabhupada returned to the Golden Avatar Studios and finished his recording of Gaurangara Dutipada, playing the harmonium and then the mridanga. So he played it. Pushta Krishna had to go, he couldn't get it. I think Nalini Kanta was there, he couldn't play. Nobody that was there could play the drum properly. So Prabhupada took it and he played it. And he hadn't played for quite a long time, but he was an expert, so it sounded very beautiful. So Nalini Kanta sat next to him holding the songbook as he played, and Yadavara filmed the event. Both Bharadwaj and Pushta Krishna tried to play the mridanga, but neither could get the beat. So Prabhupada provided the accompaniment himself. So he was listening to himself singing and then playing. We were amazed at his expertise because he hasn't played in several years. He sat back with a drum on his lap. Pointing to it, he laughingly said that his father had wanted him to learn this. He never wanted me to be a worldly man, he said. So that's actually, you've probably seen that little video clip, very nice. Prabhupada was recalling. His mother actually wanted to send him to London. That was something that had developed. Gandhi, when he was a youth, he was sent, because that was in the 1880s or something, he was sent to London, and many young Indians were being sent to London to get a British education and become lawyers and things like that. And apparently Prabhupada's mother also had a similar kind of idea, but his father said, no way. If he goes to London, he'll be spoiled. So he, instead, he had him taking Mridanga lessons and learning how to be a Vaishnava. So nice. Okay, so then that was one recording session that we had. Then later on, when we returned to India, we got to Vrindavan on September the 2nd, and Hansadutta was there, and he had previously apparently recorded Srila Prabhupada singing some bhajans, I think maybe in Germany, and then they had printed a record, an album, LP, and they were selling that on the streets. So he wanted to get some more recordings. So September the 13th, Hansadutta has asked Prabhupada if he can record him singing some more bhajans. He wants to make another record for Sankirtan distribution. Prabhupada agreed, despite the fact that he has great difficulty speaking very much at the moment due to high blood pressure. In fact, there was one morning when Prabhupada actually greeted the deities, received Guru Puja, but didn't give the class because he had so much throbbing in his head from high blood pressure that he couldn't actually speak properly. So that was an ongoing problem at that time. Sometimes in the evenings, he was calling me in maybe about 8 o'clock in the night, and he had me massage his head with Brahmi oil. Brahmi oil is it's an Ayurvedic, Indian students use it as a kind of a hair tonic, but it has a cooling effect on the brain, and they use it when they're studying. They rub it in their head, and it helps to, keep them sane whilst they're studying. So Prabhupada had some problems with high blood pressure in Hawaii in May, and he had Giriraj send in 3 bottles of Brahmi oil to Hawaii. But we